I was at Georgetown and happened to have the television on, and saw a special order talk you gave on the subject, which I thought you did a great job. I was very appreciative of it. And I want to say to Mr. Carnahan, yeah, I'm a big fan of your sisters, the Secretary of State of Missouri, so it's good to see you here. I sat in this room for a long time as a member of the Budget Committee, whose quarters you have momentarily taken over, and we debated, I thought, a lot of very significant issues of the time, but none of them, none of the issues we ever talked about in the Budget Committee were nearly as important as the one that you're talking about today. It's one of the most fundamental issues ever facing the Congress or facing the country. I'm not going to, you've got my statement, you read it. I agree with everything my friend David Skaggs has said and want to associate myself with his remarks. So let me just make a couple of additional observations, if I could, and we'll be prepared to answer questions. One of the things I've noticed, I run a program now for the Aspen Institute that teaches leadership, and we were struck by a film, the movie Kenneth Branagh's film of Henry V. Henry V is, of course, considered one of the great leaders. The British people can consider Henry V a great leader, and one of the things that made him a great leader was his leadership in war, where he managed to conquer France and unite France and Britain. And people would point to him and say, you know, now that's leadership. Well, it was leadership, but it was not leadership of the kind that you expect in this country, because it was leadership where a ruler sat down with a small group of advisors and decided, let's go to war. And the people themselves, the people who would be sent off to fight and to die, had no say in it. Their only job was to kill or be killed. What makes this country different is that in other countries preceding the United States, you had subjects and you had their rulers. And when this country was founded as a very fundamental break from the past, our founders said, we're not going to have rulers and subjects, we're going to have citizens and their government. And the difference was that rulers could tell their subjects what to do. And in this country, citizens are supposed to tell their government what to do. And they do it through this body. They do it through the Congress. This is how the people govern. Bernard Crick, who's a British historian and scholar, wrote a book called In Defense of Politics, and he said the politics is the way a free people govern themselves. It is through you that the people set their own fate. There has been a lot of talk about Congress's rights and Congress's authority, and whether or not Congress's authority is being usurped. That expression was used before. This is not about usurpation by the executive. All presidents try to usurp power. That's human nature. The problem is congressional acquiescence. The problem is and there have been people who have suggested that the current president has been guilty of malfeasance. Maybe, maybe not. But this Congress has certainly been guilty of nonfeasance, of not doing its job. It is not, the Constitution does not grant Congress rights. It grants Congress burdens, obligations, responsibilities to be the voice of the people in deciding whether or not the American people are going to be rounded up and sent off to die in a war without the approval of the people themselves, through you. Please. The one place where I would suggest that there is, even in Walter Jones' excellent work, and I'm just as proud of you, sir, as Chairman Delahunt expressed. But there is a tendency, as we try to finesse the situation and make it as nice as possible, to talk about shared power. This is not a matter of shared power. Under the Constitution, the President of the United States has the authority to manage war, to direct the actions of the military, but there is no shared power about deciding whether we go to war. That is entirely the job of the Congress. The President may or may not recommend going to war. And we've looked at the situation today and we say, well, but this is different. We face a great threat. We face an enormous threat. I want to tell you, I don't dismiss the danger of possible attacks by Al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups, and they could be very disastrous. But, at the time the Constitution was adopted in 1787, when it was written in 1787, rather, we faced both Britain and France with the power, had they decided to focus on the United States, of strangling this country in the crib. They could have wiped us out. And we had a great man about to become president, George Washington. And with George Washington about to assume the presidency, and two countries ready to wipe us out if they so chose, the Founding Fathers said, we are still going to withhold from the presidency the powers that kings have traditionally held. So that's why the Constitution is not vague about who declares war. Not vague at all. In fact, if you look at the Constitution, and I'm sure you do, it even includes giving the Congress the authority over treatment of prisoners, which people here seem to have forgotten. So let me just close with this. I'm partisan. I'm a Republican. I was chairman of the Republican Policy Committee when I was in the House, part of the Republican leadership. I prefer Republican policies. But political party loyalty cannot trump the Constitution. Loyalty to a president of your own party, when it violates the constitutional principles, is acquiescence in something that violates the oath of office every member of Congress takes. That there is no excuse for taking the oath, saying, I'm going to uphold the Constitution. We all did that, right? I'm going to uphold the Constitution. You take loyalty to the United States and its Constitution, not to a president. And we have seen too often a tendency of members of Congress to line up with the quarterback as opposed to lining up with the Constitution. So I commend what you're doing. I think this hearing is tremendously important. I am so glad, Mr. Chairman, that you called this hearing. Mr. Rohrabacher, I'm very proud of some of the comments you made in this area, and hopefully this will be the beginning of a Congress that will in fact get back the backbone to stand up for the principles it was obligated to stand up for when you ran for office, when you took the oath of office, and stepped out of your role as a candidate representing a party and became lawmakers under the Constitution. Thank you.